Before there was a fire-breathing dragon in Diagon Alley, there lived a mammoth shark deep in the waters of Amity Bay. What started off as a thrilling stop on the Backlot tour in Hollywood would soon make its way to Orlando in one of the most impressive showcases of practical effects the theme park world had ever seen. But as many of these stories go, it begins with a company biting off more than they can chew. This is the history of Jaws, the ride. The world-famous Studio Backlot tour at Universal Hollywood changed the landscape of the studio theme park as we know it. A huge part of that was these key staged moments like the King Kong encounter, the Psycho House, and of course, Jaws. After the overwhelming success of the first Jaws film in 1975, the blockbuster shark was added to the tour the following summer. This thrilling experience, although short, did make waves in the park's popularity, ticket sales, and their overall presence in pop culture. As the mid-80s rolled around, Universal had their eyes fixated on the other coast, as they would begin planning Universal Studios Florida. Up until this point, the Orlando theme park market consisted of Disney World, SeaWorld, and some small amusement parks that are either shut down by this point or probably should be. Disney had just opened their new Epcot park, proving once again that they were the top dogs when it comes to theme park innovation. Originally, Universal had planned to open an East Coast version of their Universal Studios tour, with a tram, backlot, sound stages, and operational movie studio right here in Florida. At this time, Universal was not in the position to be fronting that cost completely by themselves. They would look to outside sponsors and other studios to partner with in a licensing capacity. In 1984, Universal pitched the idea/plans to Paramount in hopes for a partnership deal. Then president of Paramount, Michael Eisner, thought the idea was so good that when he left the company the following year and was hired by Disney, one of the first items on his agenda, announcing a new Disney World park with the same concept. Mind you, this was after Universal had went public with their Florida park plans. Eisner fast-tracked the project, and with the company's contracts and infrastructure in place, would easily beat Universal to the punch. And they did. In May of 1989, Disney's MGM Studios opened to the public. This would end up being a blessing in disguise for Universal. To avoid the operational movie studio with a backlot tour approach that Disney would soon open, their focus shifted to a newer concept. Rather than recreating the backlot tour in Hollywood without the history and original iconic movie sets, why not take those thrilling Universal movie moments from the tour and turn them into fully fledged rides? As a result, Ride the Movies was born.
The only place on Earth where you can ride the movies.
Universal would pull the King Kong moment from the Backlot tour to create Kongfrontation, the subway disaster scene to create Earthquake, the big one, and Jaws, for what would become the world's most thrilling boat ride. The idea was to go bigger than they ever had before.
He's one of the most chilling creations ever captured on film, and he makes his home in the waters of Universal Studios.
With an original working title of Jaws, The Adventure Amity Boat Tours, Universal began the planning of this full-scale Jaws ride experience. The plan was not only to go bigger in terms of the size of the shark, but add multiple shark sightings to this ride. In order to pull off such an impressive feat of engineering, Universal would elicit the help from Ride and Show, a third-party company made up of mostly former Disney Imagineers, a company that engineers and fabricates rides for theme parks. Since Universal was still relatively new in the game of building non-tram-based attractions, why not go straight to the experts, right? That mindset would end up being the beginning of their problems. See, Universal was developing nearly every inch of the 100-plus acre theme park, a feat that the company had never done before on such a tight timeline. Having already pushed it back once, the opening date was officially set for June 7th of 1990. And whether the rides were ready or not, Universal was sticking to it. Jaws had a lot of issues. Much like in the film, the shark animatronics created for the ride were working flawlessly until they were put underwater. This time, it wasn't the rough saltwater seas that did them in. It was the theme park bromine water. Testing for the sharks were reportedly done in freshwater tanks at the ride and show workshops before being brought to the park, which is very different from the water commonly used in theme parks that is treated with a chemical called bromine. It's great for fighting bacteria, but horrible for shark robots. This would often cause constant corrosion of the mechanical sharks, requiring extensive nightly maintenance even before opening. The other issue was the scenes themselves. Well, one in particular. In what many consider the climax of the original ride, the shark would grab onto the boat as the skipper tried desperately to fend off the beast. This effect was achieved by creating two parallel tracks. One, the ride track that the boat was on, and two, one for the shark as it latched onto the boat via a triggered sequence. The problem was, at this point, the skippers were the ones controlling the speed and timing of the boat, meaning that if they weren't going the right speed at the right time, the shark would not latch onto the boat and the effect was ruined, causing the skippers to have to awkwardly improvise why this shark is aggressively biting the air in front of the boat. Not to mention, the shark's teeth would often get knocked out by the boat, as you could clearly see in this video from the opening month of this ride. Oh, and there was this whole issue of hydraulic fluid leaks. The water in this lagoon was so polluted that these white square things referred to as diapers would be dropped into the shark pits to soak up all of the leaking hydraulic fluid from the sharks. The Jaws construction team was working day and night to get this ride ready for opening day, and they did, if you could call it that.
There were your normal ticket problems, but inside's where the problems really started.
Running?
The ride will not be open today now.
Any chance that it was going to be open by Saturday?
We did not know as of yet when it's scheduled to be open.
That was the word at confrontation. Jaws is closed too. Lightning caused problems last night. It will open eventually, we're told.
On opening day, the ride saw a small number of boats circle Amity Bay before shutting down for the day. In the months following, the ride would rarely be open. If it was, it would typically break down early in the morning, evacuate guests, and cease to reopen that day. Granted, this was the same for many opening day attractions at Universal Studios Florida. As where the technical issues were eventually resolved on Kong and Earthquake, Jaws was pretty much doomed. By August of 1990, the ride was shut down and went into a long-term refurbishment. I've heard multiple interviews with both Universal creative and ride and show engineers that blame the other for the failure of the first version of the Jaws ride. The truth is more than likely somewhere in the middle. Ride and Show didn't have the proper time to test and adjust this first-of-its-kind ride system. And Universal's expectations or special effects wish list just wasn't feasible with early 90s technology. Regardless, Universal was looking for a life ring to grab a hold of. Their saving grace came to them in the form of multiple life rings, actually. Totally Fun Company would lead the redesign team. To install this entirely new ride track, they would turn to German ride manufacturer Intamin. Oceaneering International, a company specializing in deep-sea robotic submarines, would design the sharks, and iTech Entertainment would cover the rebuild of the ride's new control system. Between the first version that Ride and Show built and Jaws 2.0, it's estimated that by 1992, Universal sunk over $70 million into this ride. Accounting for inflation, that would be almost $200 million today. Along with the ride's system changes, there were a few creative changes made to the ride during this 1990 to 1992 refurb as well. First, the scene where Jaws bites your boat was cut entirely and replaced with an exploding gas dock scene. I mean, it kind of had to change. There was also a closing scene of the ride that saw Jaws swallow a grenade from the skipper's launcher as the shark exploded with meat chunks flying into the air. Either it was deemed a little too gruesome by guests, or the underwater fake meat launching / collecting and relaunching mechanism was unreliable. Maybe it was a little of both. But the final scene was changed to reflect the ending of Jaws 2, where the shark was electrocuted, a much more humane way to subdue the monster, in my opinion. Jaws 2.0 officially opened in the summer of 1993 and was met with overwhelmingly positive feedback. Not that most people had any point of reference of the first version, since such a small amount of guests got to experience it.
It's the best thing I've seen yet.
Very beautiful, very nice.
This one screamed all the way through. Oh man, it was fabulous.
It was fun.
What warranted such a positive reaction? Let me take you through the experience. The story of the ride would not end up as a simple retelling of the film. Rather, a resident by the name Jake Grundy started a boat tour in Amity Harbor years after the in-story real-life incident with the shark happened. In the Universal Florida lore, this movie was based off of the events that happened here in 1974, supposedly. All of which was told on the televisions you could find in the line for this ride. These TVs were airing a local low-budget talk show called Hey There, Amity.
How you doing? Hey there, kids! Choppy here's the one that showed me where he gobbled all them Vistas back in '74. Good.
Once on board the boat, guests would begin their scenic tour of Amity Bay, where they stumble upon a sinking Amity tour boat. Here is where they see the first sign of the infamous shark before it passes under the boat in a pretty cool effect where it rocks the boat as it passes under. To avoid being shark bait, the boat veers into a nearby boathouse, only to be greeted by the very reason we were in the dark boathouse in the first place. This scene would have 100% scared the shit out of me. I guess now is a better time than ever to admit one of my biggest fears: thalassophobia, or at least that's how I believe it's pronounced. The intense fear of deep, dark bodies of water. Could the Jaws ride have been a major contributor to it? More on that later. Once exiting the boathouse, this was where the boat plus shark latching on scene was, but was changed to the gas dock scene where the skipper once again uses his emergency grenade launcher, albeit unsuccessfully. This explosion did little to harm the shark, as it appears for one last attempt at eating theme park guests, but instead chomps down on a nearby electrical line. As much as the special effects and animatronics played to the ride's wow factor, most of the story was conveyed by the ride's skippers. It takes a special kind of performer to man these boats. To better understand the ins and outs of the coveted Jaws skipper role, I called in a favor.
Hi, I'm MacGill. I started working at Universal in the summer of 2004 and started at the Jaws ride in February of 2007. So in order to become a skipper, you had two components. There was the water training, which is some basic swimming lessons and making sure you're not going to sink to the bottom. The other portion would be the standard operating procedures for attraction operations, learning about the ride, getting guests on and off safely, and of course, the script.
Do you still remember the script?
Bits and pieces. Mostly the fun parts.
The main reason I wanted to sit down with Skipper Jones in the first place was not to reminisce about one of the greatest attractions in theme park history, but to sort of better understand why the Jaws ride needed a skipper. After all, there was an attraction next door, Earthquake, that just sent guests onto this dangerous subway car, and there wasn't a need for a team member on board to play up these special effects.
The skippers were as critical to the Jaws ride as the shark and all of the special effects themselves. It's the trifecta. Without an enthusiastic skipper, the Jaws ride is a wet noodle. It just simply is not there.
And I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's not like the ride was reinventing the wheel in terms of story presentation. 20-or-something-year-old theme park employee turned boat captain pretending to drive a boat while giving a tour had existed for decades by that point. But with Jaws, they were there more so to sell the gravity of the situation.
Out of the entire spiel script, what was your favorite part?
That's like trying to pick a favorite child. Amity 6 to base, Amity 3 sinking out by the lighthouse. I don't know who could have done this except a shark.
I don't know who could have done this except a shark. Shark!
It killed. At least half the boat looked at me like I was crazy. The other half got it, and it was gold. It was gold. Obviously, we all know that the maintenance of the ride was a bit of a nightmare for the technicians, and that made for a lot of fun and fodder for the skippers. Example, you come into a show scene and the shark is stuck up out of the water. All of the other effects are going, but the shark's already out of the water, in which case I do a little bit of a crossover. I say, nobody move! His vision is based on movement. Don't move. Don't move.
As troubled as the ride was on opening day, the remainder of the Jaws ride's lifespan wasn't all sunshine and rainbows either. There was that time in 1990 when a guest fell off the boat and into the lagoon. Luckily, the skipper immediately hit the E-stop and the guest was rescued from one of the deep shark pits. In 2005, the ride shut down for nearly a year due to rising petroleum costs. The ride would eventually open seasonally in December of 2005 and slowly make its way back to regular operation. This was really the only time in the ride's history that its place at Universal Studios Florida seemed to be threatened. That was until 2010. In June of 2010, Universal Orlando Resort would open the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Hogsmeade at their other park, Islands of Adventure. This was replacing the former Merlin Wood area of the park. This new land was not only met with high guest satisfaction, but from 2009 to 2011, Islands of Adventure's attendance had nearly doubled, all due to the opening of this new Harry Potter world. As where Universal Florida during those years only saw an increased attendance of about 9%. Universal did want to give guests a reason to visit both parks. And since Jaws not only took up the most space of any attraction at Universal Florida, but also cost the most to operate, it was announced in 2011 that the Amity boat tours would permanently close on January 2nd of 2012. Open from 1990 to 2012, aside from a few short downtimes, Jaws made it 22 years, and that's more than most theme park rides could ever claim. This was unfortunately not the first of our fallen favorites. For years, it seemed as if Universal had taken strides away from their original Ride the Movies roots, and in its place, fresh new intellectual properties that granted probably sold a lot more merchandise. Not him though, no one is buying Jimmy Fallon merchandise. When the Jaws ride replacement Diagon Alley opened, there were a few other nods to the old attraction as well.
All right, so now we're headed over to Diagon Alley. What are your thoughts on Diagon Alley?
Harry who?
Well, you want to shop for some records? I know you are not fully aware of all the Easter eggs, but if you look over here in this window, we have...
here's the swimming with bow-legged women, the Quinteros. I did not know that was there. That's awesome.
Now there is one more Easter egg here in Diagon Alley. This one's a lot harder to catch. It's in this window. Can you find it somewhere? It's on the right-hand side, and it's behind the shelves up top.
You can see it.
Oh yeah, there's a shark jaw. Very cool. That looks like something straight out of the boathouse. Very cool.
Wish it was more prevalent though, right?
It should be front and center if you ask me.
Now most of this former Jaws area is taken up by the show building for the Gringotts ride. Have you ridden that? Does it hold up against Jaws?
I have ridden it. It's okay.
One thing that surprisingly lasted through the construction of Diagon Alley was the old Amity bathrooms, that at time of recording can still be found today between Harry Potter and Men in Black. Right now, the Jaws ride still exists, just over at Universal Japan, and it's been operating since it opened back in 2001. From the looks of it, this is a near exact replica of the second Florida version of the ride, only the skippers are speaking in Japanese. Fortunately for the real die-hard Universal Parks fans like myself, the lack of Jaws representation in Florida would start to change around 2022, when Universal would slowly start reintroducing Bruce, alongside other beloved IP into their parks through their throwback tribute stores. Was it a heavily themed front to sell more merchandise? You bet your ass it was. But us Jaws fans ate it up. In 2024, Universal would release their own playable park in Minecraft, equipped with a recreation of Amity and the Jaws ride.
Everybody, welcome to Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours. We are the best and only scenic boat tour on the island.
Later in that same year, Universal resurrected the Orca as Jaws returned in the form of a float in the Mega Movie Parade.
There's no shark! There's no shark! I believe you. I believe you. I believe you.
It is a great representation of Jaws in a theme park, but didn't really have anything to do with the ride, which was a separate story from the movie. The summer of 2025 marked 50 years since the original film was released. Along with it came a small-scale recreation of Amity to the park.
I think it was a great move on Universal's part to keep the Bruce photo op. Obviously, Bruce being the name of the shark, named after Steven Spielberg's attorney during the production of the film Jaws.
So obviously they moved this. This was originally in front of Amity?
Correct. So it used to be the entrance of Jaws, and this was directly outside.
Now I know this is kind of a no-brainer, but do you mind posing for a photo real quick? You wanna take the helm? How accurate is this?
This is pretty accurate. The only thing that stands out is this would have been lower because I used to bump this forward with my stomach region. This was not this plastic. This looked more like one of these buttons. I get nervous around the E-stop.
Is this accurate?
This is accurate.
This one doesn't.
The rubber. No, there's no rubber here.
This one doesn't come out though, right?
This one does not come out. One other neat thing about the guns, they had a little electronic trigger, or they had a little electronic sensor in there that when we actually cocked it, it would make a rifle cocking sound effect over the cue, over the speakers. The electronics all throughout the ride are, or were at the time, very old, which means they didn't always work properly.
As happy as I was to get a Amity boat tour, or at least the closest thing I could get to an Amity boat tour in the year 2025, I couldn't help but have an overwhelming feeling of regret.
See, the truth is, I actually never rode the Jaws ride here in Florida.
Around 2004, I had the opportunity, but little 9-year-old Ryan wasn't feeling too brave on that day and chickened out.
Every other trip I took while the ride was still here, it was on a seasonal schedule or was down for refurbishment. I will say, based off of my time with Skipper Jones today, I would have loved to be a skipper. Unlucky for me, I moved to Orlando about 8 years too late.
One of the parts of the lore in Amity is Amity means friendship. I have lifelong friends from the Jaws ride that still 20 years later, we're hanging out, we're chatting, we're in touch. There are multiple skippers that I know from my era that would start families together, myself included. I met my daughter's mother working at the Jaws ride. I have a little tiger shark. So obviously it's very nostalgic walking through, seeing the shark, seeing the different Jaws references. One in particular that stood out to me that we got a close-up of is on that photo opportunity with the old ride vehicle. On the inside was plastered the Jaws script, but there's a little handwritten note that said, "Return at the end of your shift, Skip." Skip, Michael Skipper, was a Jaws lead for many years, including when I was there. He had a son named Mikey Jr., both huge Jaws fans. Skip would go on to be the closing skipper of the last Jaws ride. If you go and you YouTube the final Jaws ride, that's Skip up front.
All right, when that gate starts, that's it. We're gonna go, all right? I'm gonna check in with base. We're gonna head out there on the lighthouse, take a little trip. Amity 6 to base, come in base.
This is base, you're cleared for departure, Amity 6. Have a good trip.
10-4, time to start, we're 20.
So unfortunately, Skip and his son Mikey were lost to a wrong way drunk driver the evening of July 4th, 2021. It's just a coincidence you can't even write, is that was the 4th of July. The Amity theme is the 4th of July. The next day, 5th of July, when we found out the news, it was like the 4th of July is over and it's finally the 5th of July. It's heartbreaking but poetic at the same time. And Skip had always talked about wanting to do a major Jaws reunion, which obviously with everyone, living their lives and being in different parts of the country, it wasn't always feasible, but at that wake, we had the ultimate Jaws skipper reunion, and many people we hadn't seen in a long time were able to come together, share those memories, and share the love that we had for Jaws, for Skip and Mikey, and for the rest of the Universal family.
This is Jaws ride. It's the best experience of my life. I'm so sad it's over, but it's always going to live right here for me. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
It truly is amazing to see a tribute to a beloved member of the Universal family. If you were able to ride the Jaws ride here in Florida, let me know in the comments below. Share your love, or a simple yes or no in all caps will do. It really is the #1 way to let me know you made it all the way to the end of this video. Shout out to Roosevelt's for the sick threads you'll find me wearing in this video. They just dropped a 50th anniversary Jaws collection that for first time buyers is 15% off with the special link in the description of this video. To learn more on what it was like to work on the Jaws ride, my full in-depth interview with Jay, aka Skipper Jones, is available for free on my Patreon. If you're looking to help support the channel just a little more, like these wonderful folks right here, Patreon is the place to be, with exclusive vlogs, behind the scenes content, and early access to videos like this one.
For more Universal Parks history, check out this video right here, or this one's on Halloween Horror Nights, and it's probably one of my favorites. As always, I am Ryan, this has been For the Love of Theme Parks, and I will see you all real soon. Bye.